Okay, people, you're welcome to another edition of State of Play. And today, we told you we're going to talk about the perennial losses reported from the Auditor General's report. We'll talk about that. But something came up yesterday that requires some more important review. This is because when the government was trying to get Akufo-Addo, I did a very wonderful interview with the BBC. We have put together a report about everything connected to free SHS, right from the beginning to this time. The unchanging changes, the seasons of free SHS, the very places we've gone through and the discussions we've had, the relevant voices that have been part of the conversation on perhaps our big, in God knows how long. Now, it's important because the president made a fundamental shift, and that's what people are actually calling it anyway, or some concession of a sort, agreeing that we need a broader national conversation. Now, some are taking that to mean automatically we need to review free SHS, or two, I was wrong, it's time for us to review free SHS, because everybody in this country knows that when it comes to the free SHS, it's perhaps the sacred god here, untouchable, and even the hint of a review can get you into trouble. If you want to know, ask the current Director General of the GES. Ask the Finance Minister himself. Remember some time ago when he said that parents should be allowed to pay and that he does not know how he should be getting his kids in school and they're not paying. Then Minister of Information, Mustafa Hamid, was very clear in his mind that that's opinion and government is so focused on it. I remember interviewing the man who is in charge of education policy in this country, Education Minister, and asked him, are we reviewing free SHS? Said, my mandate does not include a review of free SHS. He, the Minister of Education. So, what the president said, which will be plain to you, and put in the right perspective, appears to be a massive, massive evolution from the obvious CNTOBR position on this particular matter. Now, but who's been speaking on this, man? Catholic Bishops' Conference, review, they asked for it. Some education coalitions too, even the teacher unions, have asked for the review of the policy. But all of that had actually been greeted with, it's not possible. There was an indication in the FAQs, and if you have not read it, go and look for it, that suggested that social intervention programs, including the free SHS, were going to be cancelled. But the possibility of its review is being looked at. That still has not happened. George Yafi spoke to the Finance Minister. He also was clear in his mind that there is a need for some working. In fact, he said review of the policy is on the table.
Ken Oforiatta's position has really not changed.
Has not changed that much.
Right from the word go.
So it's either it's obvious the president was the only mountain we needed to move to get that education policy fine-tuned, improved, because there's been so many suggestions from educationists, from leaders of various education programs, from former vice chancellors, from various groupings who are so well-meaning in their hearts that this is the best way to go. But it appears the president is shifting the goalposts on this one. Not necessarily shifting goalposts. He is conceding, or if you like, he is moving to the middle small by his call. Ernest. Now, Ernest is joining me in studio.
Yeah.
On the Zoom lines, I'll be joined by both Elton and also Winston in this particular conversation because it's perhaps your biggest show you should be listening to. Here, we don't miss words. If you want to miss words, go to other places. But here, we speak truth to power. And that's what's going to happen here. You're welcome, Ernest.
Thank you very much. And I just want to start on this note. I know you know very well that President Akufo-Addo is very eloquent.
Yeah.
Did you notice how he struggled to make the point about the review? I mean, that was the first thing that struck me. But why am I surprised? I mean, if you interpret review to mean cancel, you would definitely struggle to come to the point of eating that humble pie. And it's really been difficult for President Akufo-Addo. I mean, and I don't get the posture of this government. He was quick to add, oh, there are some powerful voices out there who are interested in sabotage. Do you really have to say that all the time? And everyone is branded a naysayer once you speak about a government policy and suggest otherwise.
And you disagree with it.
And you disagree with it.
As if that's not what we are supposed to, because...
And they forget that there are people out there. Exactly. And they forget that there are people out there who don't care about this NDC, NPP nonsense.
That's true.
We really do not care because at the end of the day, people like President Akufo-Addo, well, his kids are much older. Yeah. But there are people in his government who take their kids outside the country.
Or to Lincoln and all the
big schools in the country.
Us, with ordinary masses cannot pay for.
We cannot pay for.
Yes.
And as we speak, some of them are there.
Yeah.
But recently, some government appointees moved their kids elsewhere because people were pointing fingers at them.
Yeah.
And so what is this posture about? Everybody is an naysayer once you disagree. So you will definitely struggle when this has been your position and you go to Cape Coast and say there's a radio station in Accra mounting a campaign against your flagship program just because we opened the phone lines for the people you call stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, and all the other people involved to make contributions to. I think we should be looking, by the way, you nearly cost the man his job. Professor but I'm looking for a big stone to give him because at the end of the day, the president has admitted that there's a review and that the ministry is actually doing a review. This man was on your show and clearly stated that this is what we are doing. What was the education ministry's business about there's no review and what was all that about?
Because their mandate, the minister told me his mandate did not include a review of the policy.
But he didn't clearly speak the truth. Because now we are learning from the president that there is a review underway and that the minister is actually undertaking that review to inform government's position on this.
Now, when you look at the ambivalence around this particular issue, when you look at how we have gone with this policy and how we have treated it, it suggests one thing to me all the time. Why do we feel that merely because I disagree with how you implement something means that I'm an enemy of the state? And that I do not want the well-being of the policy and the government. If there are better educated people in this country, we would all love that. Employers will be happy.
People will be happy.
People will be happy that their kids have gotten the best of education.
And by the way, we love our secondary schools.
Yes.
We are very proud of that system.
And even the worst part of this conversation is that it was almost made to look like the participatory democracy we talk about has a limitation. It cannot go
to free exercise.
See, I'll bring all the other gentlemen into it. But to put this in proper context, from the time the president spoke to the BBC to his latest speech on this matter, this is a sum of what has been happening with free SHS.
Very soon we're going to be putting it out.
You don't know how much?
I do know how much, but I prefer to tell the Ghanaian people directly before I tell you.
Many of them can't talk. You can tell me and
doesn't matter. I would prefer to make that statement to the people of Ghana directly first as to the cost and any
So
time.
you do know the cost?
Oh, we do, and we have a very good idea how also we're going to finance it.
Well, you don't have to, you're obviously not going to give me the figures, but just tell me how you're going to pay for it. Because it's clearly going to be a very great cost. You've got to train the teachers, you've got to build new schools.
All of that has been adequately costed, and we believe that, first of all, the new revenues will help, more efficient management of what we have now, growth in the Ghanaian economy. These are the three sources which are going to enable us to fulfill that promise. And it is a promise that has been solemnly made to the Ghanaian people and is going to be solemnly kept, not because it's a campaign promise, but because it is a necessity for the future of our country to educate all our young people.
The issue of free education, I don't think it's something that any of us can compromise on, you know, and true, it may be that there have to be changes in the way in which we are administering it. You know, I can't take my child to Achimota or Dogono and then leave him or her and drive away and can operate and not pay anything, whilst I can pay for 10 people.
Move. And despite all the advantages of free SHS, it has even worsened it. Because now about 7.5 or 6 billion immediately goes into it. I think that free SHS is wonderful because if it was there, I would have gone to secondary school, not teachers' college. So, but we have to look at it again. I think that there are certain schools which we should make them autonomous and fee-paying.
I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that we will continue to address head-on the problems that arise from the implementation of the policy. Just as Reverend Pearson, his staff, and the first 50 students of Prempeh College did in 1949 and
and so say Nancy, what you say when you are to more, Yanjin to more. The air can say, you about review policy no. Now review your policy. Review your policy. You can policy and I will say review. Review your policy. No be okay say on pay. No cancel review. I don't need the over cancel. It is all about the yes, sir. You have a town, but not about the drum. Yeah, play no net and play the snap. Say about the drum. Yeah, play no net and play the snap. Got a phone play and the about the drum.
We shall not compromise on President Akufo-Addo's commitment to giving all our children the opportunity to be educated from kindergarten to university, without the ability to pay being a hindrance. Free secondary and tertiary education
item, I think we can get parents to pay. This item, let's find some. Let the regional, the district offices or regional offices take care of this. You know, so when we have done that and we've all added our inputs into it, then we can all come back and say that okay, for this the total cost for educating someone in the free SHS. This is it. But we believe that if you take them item by item, these items, we can do this, we can do that, we can do that. So at the end of the day, we can all agree that this is the amount that we believe that government should bear.
Let me end by addressing a particular line of the current argument being made about the threat to rights and freedoms. I believe this has led to a new definition of a culture of silence. It goes along the line. That when people in government and all government policies are criticized, and there is a defense of the people of policies, it is intimidatory and leads to a culture of silence. A radio station is currently running a campaign against free SHS.
Senior high school is not like, the tipping of where we want to go. But certainly in any system you look at efficiencies, you find ways of making it more effective. And that, I think, we have a great education minister who is constantly tweaking these things. So it will get better.
So the review is on the table, right?
Review is constantly on the table, and it's just to make sure that the appropriate education is given, that wastages are eliminated, and that, it goes to give us value for money.
All Ghanaian children now have access at least to basic school education. The difference between 95% and 100 is almost negligible. So, and therefore it will be relatively easy to move from 95 to 100. Yeah. So that in itself is a major achievement for us as a country. I subscribe very strongly to the possibility that the minister is examining the possibility, because if we're going to have a serious discussion, it has to be manufactured and it hasn't to be artificial, and it should be in a manner where all stakeholders. With education, stakeholders really means the entire population of Ghana. The whole country. Yeah, the whole country. Yeah, because really it is.
So we just let you know what's important in this conversation. We should be able to put this in perspective, and that's what we try to do with the videos there from the president on what is supposed to be the cost of all of this, through to the point that we are here today. Deep within my heart, there's a question I'm asking myself. Did we really know how much we're supposed to devote to free SHS? The last report from the Auditor General says 1.4 billion is what we have spent within that particular period. Just last year alone for it. Over the years, we spent a lot of money and we continuously actually input a lot of resources into this particular area. Some have questioned why it is reasonable to give day students food 3 times a day and their boarding students and actually provide for free SHS. Some are actually questioning why we took on the burden when parents could be paying and be part of some of the, and some parents
I think
should be
initially,
paying.
Raymond, today students were benefiting 1 free meal a day.
Yes.
That in itself didn't make sense. I mean, if you're walking to school, if government is taking care of tuition and everything, why should feeding be the problem of government?
Let me bring in important contributions that we've been making to all of this. Some of the people have been talking about this for God knows how long. Elton Brube sits very close to the president most of the time when the president is talking about some of these issues. He's joining this via Zoom. Also, Mr. Namwa, who is also being one of those talking about free SHS right from the beginning, is also joining us via Zoom. Elton, you first. Does it suggest to you that we have come full circle and at least finally the president has heard the cry of the people in this country? If Elton is not on, Winston, if you're on, you can also share your views with this on this one. If the Zoom works, we sure should be able to get some of these people to join.
Raymond, the question I'm asking myself is, just a few weeks ago, the president was emphatic when he said his flagship programs, we had a final meeting with the IMF.
Yes.
On what basis was he saying that? And so the other question is, what is this earthquake that has shaken the Akufo-Addo mountain and gotten him to move from his very entrenched position about not reviewing the free SHS to now calling everybody, including the radio station you said was waging a campaign against free SHS, to have a conversation? Elsewhere, the president should be apologizing, but I know we won't get that. And so hopefully going forward, we should be tolerant and not interpret review to mean cancellation and hear everyone else on the matter. Otherwise, we'll be back to this issue.
One of the things people have been calling for is the review of free SHS. I think we should have a broader conversation about the incidence of education on our national development. I mean, listen, yes, this broader conversation we should have. We should have, because I've been consistently saying that the national education sector annual review has not been happening the way I thought it would happen consistently. It has not been happening because I've not been hearing of it, and media men have not been invited to attend some of these reviews. So perhaps if we were there, the review of SHS and other education policy will be done. This broader national conversation, if one construes that to me that it's a review that the presidency is asking for, to me, it is progress in the direction that at least we are all coming to the table and agreeing that this is something we want to do.
I have no doubt in my mind that is what it is.
At some point,
but this is definitely difficult to accept. I mean,
yeah, because if you do politics with it,
if
you do politics with it, if you create the impression that this policy is so solid that it can never be touched, that is the best policy, government policy. Government that has monitor and evaluation in every ministry for a purpose, to monitor and evaluate the policies so that it can be work done consistently. A program that is being done by food and feeding challenges, that it reaches a point, they're almost shutting down. They can't do sporting events. Because when the kids get angry, they don't get food to eat. So obviously, we have seen the challenges. Nobody who is fair and candid in this country would not admit that there have been challenges with this program. So if you say that there's no need for review, exactly which room were you operating in? Exactly which space gave you the impression that even when educationists across the board were of the opinion that policy in an official ought to be tweaked, then you say that it cannot be dealt with. But if, and you see, there's a question that I always consistently say, did you really think about this policy before we implemented it? Beyond that we will do it. Did you really think about it? Did you see the policy document underpinning the policy? Did you see the very engagements that ideally would have been, we meet the first stakeholders in the sector, the JOJO, that we fashion out the best way of implementing the policy, regardless of the fact that it was a campaign promise. If you decide that you so moto pursue a policy like this, and regardless of the people's views and other people being on board, you can dismiss the NDC. How about the Cali Bishops Conference?
How about educationists?
Yes, how about
your own finance minister?
How about the people in the education sector?
How about your GS director? How about all these people who actually superintend over the program and actually saying that we need to review the program?
How about parents?
How about parents who called into the morning show? Parents who called into the station in Accra to say their children are hungry. And this was not induced. This was not orchestrated. I mean, sometimes government must really, really pull the brakes and listen. It is clear that this was rushed. It is clear that government is having a hard time to run the program. And I would have thought that our running to the IMF will be a very good excuse. I mean, I thought government was going to leverage on that to completely review the program, because that will be acceptable. Really.
Yeah, I mean, because we are in hard times. We don't have the money for it, and which will be a very reasonable justification. Because obviously on the ground, you didn't have money for it.
Have money.
You are paying some schools, you are not paying other schools.
And just around that time, Charles was threatening to shut down from the Upper West to the Eastern region, all over the country. We did reports. No, schools are without food. He said, no. You are just doing doom mongering. But the reality of the ground is that things are becoming bad by the day. I mean, listen, nobody will be happy if their kids are in school and can't be fed. No. Nobody will be happy. No parents will be happy of that situation is happening. Yeah. So if it cannot happen, we should rethink our own policy. It's not for Togolese, it's for Ghanaians. We are the ones who put together policy, and we want to review and think about it the way it ought to be done. I should have Elton and Winston join us on this one. Elton, if you're on board, what's your view on this matter? Well, we're still struggling to hear him. So, I don't know if Winston too could also join us. This Zoom is trying to actually make it difficult for us to operate. Yeah, and I would love to hear Winston's
review the Zoom arrangement. we are not opposed to review.
Yeah,
reviews for progress.
We have to review that.
Yes,
and I would love to hear Winston, especially because I mean, on the he's on the morning show. Raymond, you are also there, and to hear the president say this, I mean, clearly this is a full 360.
Yeah,
and I would love to hear Winston's view.
Perhaps he did it slowly. Perhaps he didn't say that. Oh, we
obviously struggled.
Yeah, yes. Listen, but we understand him. We're not going to pull this matter, make it look like we are rejoicing over some victory or anything like that. Listen, education policy for all of us. We are all happy when we train the very best of our people. People also have moved into innovative learning. They are moving to areas that they are building the future of their world with the kids that are coming up. We are not just excited because we are Ghanaians and we are having issues in this country. We are excited because we have a better education system going forward with the review. That's why you should understand from all of this. We are not like people who are just outside and pissing in. And we are affected. In any case, if you line up the ministers, there are very powerful rich people who have now gotten money and can take their kids wherever they want to take them. But most of us in this country cannot do the same thing. That is why we mostly are interested in not doing the usual partisan politics with our education. Because there's an area that you cannot do with this. Now, Winston joins me on phone on this one. I'll be dying to hear your voice on this because we've been doing this advocacy right from the beginning. It looks like we're making inroads.
Oh, of course we have made inroads. You see, one of the things I just want to say briefly, Raymond, because of our time, is that, look, figures don't lie. You can do everything you want. You can say everything you want. But the reality is that the figures, when it matters most, will tell you what to do. You can live in denial all you want, but your figures at the right time will make you take the right decision. My point is simply this. We said free SHS should be means tested. They said no, they're not going to do that. We said free SHS should be a check system. So if you want to go to boarding school, it is luxury. The state should not pay for your boarding fees, and others would go to day school and the state pays for them. That amounts to discrimination. When we said free SHS needed review, we should look at the quality aspect of it. It was not just in reference to access to education. We were told that we were against free SHS. We were running a campaign against free SHS. For me, I am not going to say this is my stone. I am just going to say that when it matters
Well, I'm bringing you a stone, whether I like it or not.
No, when it matters most, the figures will tell you that it is time to pause. It is time to pause and review all the things you have said in the past. I say, you can play all the propaganda you want. When it matters most, the figures will pump sense into you.
Now, it's an interesting point to be there. Let me bring you some of the people who have been joining this conversation. Dumevi Bonyon says, the man said review means curtailed. You should by now know that the man still have his old style of political thinking. Famous Smith said the free SHS needs a serious review. Co-Mensa Pillar 2. His Excellency Nanado is a gift for Ghana. Let's support him for a better Ghana. No review for free SHS. Co-Mensa,
why are you in this country?
Well, I mean, it's your view, but it looks like the president is also leaving that school with you. So it appears that those of you who are still in the no review situation.
The bus has left. And just as the roads minister will say, you better catch up.
Yes. You need to
speed up.
Double
up because you've left.
Because it appears the discussion has moved to the point where there's a national conversation required on what we want for our education sector. And you see, let's not reduce it to just the president and just the individuals who are in the education ministry. They are just a fragment of the people who matter in education in this country. It's our collective resources that we are using here. It's our collective future that we are talking about here. The people who are being trained are Ghanaian children. If they become stars elsewhere, all over the world, they are showing academic brilliance. We will be proud of them. If the current standards are deteriorating, we should be bold enough to say we are turning the corner and changing course. That is how prudent business and governance is done.
And that is why the stakeholders and as the must have a say in this. That is why they must also contribute, especially the many who are willing to contribute to this, must be given the opportunity to do so, because at the end of the day, we all stand to benefit.
Now, there's one from Famous Spit says, if the free SHS is not reviewed, it will not stand the test of time. Edu Jemfi Rich said, it's good for a review, but the MPP government should be more tolerant when it comes to national issues and stop their arrogant postures. That is what Edu Jemfi Richard is saying. Abukari Al-Hassan, the president said review. That's what actually he's also saying here. So most of your thoughts we sure should be having them on this one. Now, I have been consistent on this point, and I heard Rinsty making the point too. You look at your numbers. You look at the fact that you're struggling with the beginning of this year to even get the amount of money from the Eurobond and other things that you want, and you're not getting the money. Look at the fact that you are struggling to make up resources. You are struggling to make sure that you raise money from e-levy.
Fiscal position is terrible.
It's terrible. Ideally, everybody, even you, the personal self, you start looking at what you can cut, what you can reduce, what you can review. Look at what is most appropriate and most adequate within the period that you find yourself. That is what every rational person does. And that's what the expectation is of states too. And we don't have foolish people in charge of this country. The people who are in charge of this country are smart enough to identify when there's a problem. It is the reason why there's an important question that ought to be asked again. When we say we will do this program, what thinking went into it? Were we adequately prepared? Did we identify? You see, we were wobbling in terms of sources for funding. From the Yaosaf Mahfouz Heritage Fund talk, which was dismissed by government. And the information minister came to remove of the finance minister, the guy who's managing our finances, the chancellor of the exchequer, the guy whose responsibility is to make sure that our finances are in order, was in the position to say that, no, let's hold on. And even he, the finance minister, from let's get them to participate to free SHS will not be reviewed to it is always on the table.
Constantly
exactly on the table. What is the position that he was trying to communicate, except for him being gapped. Because if a finance minister comes out to speak, and the people in this government can tell the finance minister that, hey, your view is your view. Government's view is still different from what you, the chancellor of the exchequer, is saying. Then it tells you how we have treated the free SHS. That sacred cow, that most important golden, tool that we can never touch. I am happy that at least one signal is clear. Sometimes we should be humble in this country to engage all. If we had engaged all, people understand. Ghanaians make concessions for so many things. Politicians promise, they are unable to deliver. John Kufuor was very clear in his mind that, well, I did not know this situation. I came to meet a different situation. So, humbly, so forgive me.
It's different from the outside.
Yes.
And it's different when you're actually looking at it. When you're
And he was so clear that he knew he needed to communicate to the people and tell them, admit it. When in 2014 or 2015, Dr. Abamia did that lecture about the economy, he said, admitting that you are wrong, admitting that we got something wrong and we can change course is wonderful. And it's a good step in the right direction. This government requires that advice too. It is becoming one too many that first we say we will not change something, then we end up changing it. Kwame Saponesi has some comment on this particular matter. In fact, he was talking about how government consistently says it will do one thing and do the other. This is what they put up on Facebook. We won't go to the IMF. We are proud people. That was finance minister.
That's finance minister.
We went. The free SHS is not subject to a review. It's not in my mandate to review. The president says we are reviewing. You see, if this government says look right, look left, or close your eyes, that's what Kwame Saponesi do put on Facebook. I mean, if you ask me, the part where it sounds like we are ambivalent in policy direction, it's because we take a very strong stand, not amenable to change. But it's only fools who don't change their minds in the face of incontrovertible evidence.
And anybody, and it's quite surprising because these are people who've been in government before, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the first time we're having an NVP. And so you should know definitely that policy is only subject to review. But you see, the problem is, it comes back to the politics of it. When you mount the campaign platform and you interpret review to mean cancellation, then you have all these difficulties. And I'm really hoping that going forward, we are really going to have a dispassionate conversation about it, non-partisan, and get everybody who matters on the table to actually look at the figures and take a decision. A decision in the best interest of Ghanaians.
Because from Presec to Addis Adel, no school in this country recruits students and say, hey, are you an MPP child or NDC child?
Nobody does.
It is the people of this country who are considered for schooling. And it's the future of this country that's at risk if we decide to play with education and not be forthright in our mind on what we want to do with education. But then again, Sikano, where are we going to raise the money to continue the funding? The 1.4 billion that we are talking about, will it come from some loans that we have already procured, or will it come from the IMF's engagement?
By the way, what has the IMF said about this? Because it's quite curious. And mind you, Raymond, this pronouncement of the president is coming just a few days after we met the IMF.
Yes, after we had the progressive...
Could it be that there was a conversation around this?
I mean, one can project that it's possible. What could compel the president to shift in this position?
And our minds being prepared for the massive announcement.
Yeah. Anyway, consistent announcement along the line. Jude Agbemava says the education minister talks too much and it makes one feel as if he's one of no substance. He must lead this review. Famous is in the first place, there's no policy document for the free SHS. The reason why we are here is something that we kept on asking. Where is the policy document? What is influencing this decision? What is influencing our plan? Because mostly you put together a policy nicely done. An economic policy officer that will review the sector and say, this is why free SHS is urgent and needed now.
And especially when you had fears that a change in government will mean a cancellation, it was important for you to put the policy document together so that it will guide successive governments who ought to be interested in quality education for the people.
So it appears one of the best ways to do this is do a Senchi-style education policy review. Or mostly our National Education Sector Annual Review. We do it at, is it one of the ones around the beach? Is it no, it's not about the beach, La Palm Royal Beach. I've seen that happen there a couple of times. Maybe we have to go back to La Palm. Or in the alternative, do a Zoom engagement because of monetary issues.
Absolutely. I am against any form of meeting in any luxurious facility.
Brilliant. As for proposals, so Tom, we can all write and submit it to you. And we can all participate
in this era. I mean,
brilliant.
Let's use all the e-platforms available.
All right, people have written on that.
Yes.
People have written on that. There's a policy document, part of it, there's a research was shared by Dr. Tio Echampo on his page from one lady who had actually been influenced or engaged the Education Ministry on this policy in times past. I am just hoping that what will continue or be the reasoning for our continuous stay with this policy or whatever we want to do with this policy is prudent decisions based on research, based on what's available to us, based on prudent reasoning, and not merely because we want to make a partisan and because we want to be politically prudent or politically expedient with the process.
And also finding that balance, Raymond, between access, equity, and quality. We need to find that balance.
Brilliant.
So that we are getting the people into school, but we are not compromising on the quality, but we are making sure that people are contributing in equal measure to keep the system running.
The next time, we should not be talking about reviewing free SHS. We should be talking about how to improve our education to make students who come out of our schools innovation ready. Not just people who have finished and passed exams. That's the extent other countries are taking their kids. That's where we should be going. Not how much government is paying, how much I'm paying, or whose contribution is it to pay for the rest of it. Well, do have a wonderful afternoon.